Church. Welcome. We are so happy to have you here and to be singing and playing and worshiping our great God with you. What a beautiful day to serve the Lord, because He made us and it is His day today and every day. If you're comfortable and able, please stand and sing with us. But come to worship God however you are. You are matchless in grace and mercy. There is nowhere we can hide from your love. You are steadfast, never failing. You are faithful. All creation is in awe of who you are. You're the healer. Our comfort for every heart that mourns, our King, our Savior forever. For eternity we'll sing of all you've done. For eternity we'll sing of all you've done. Between us, God with us, admits I was wrong. Love is waiting with the weight of what we've done. Love receives. Love responds. Love believes that we are more than what we've done. Love commits to the light. Love is running from the darkness into life. Thank you so much for our life today. Thank you for those around us. Thank you that we can show your love and live in your love and give your love and be your love. Be with us today and every day. We worship your name. Amen.
Good morning, Life Church. All right. It's so great to see all of you here in the auditorium and all of you out there online. My name is Dwayne. No, I'm not a doctor, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Just joking. But we welcome you. We're so glad that you're here with us today. worshiping with us. We so appreciate having all of you here with us. We here at Life Church exist for one reason, and that's to lead people to Jesus for life. That is our mission. That's what we're here for. Why Jesus? Because we believe he changes things. He changes people. He gives us life. He lifts us up. He guides us. He picks us up when we're down, and we need him. And we hope that you're on this journey with us, whether you've been in church your whole life, whether you're just exploring faith recently, you've been kicking tires for a little while. We appreciate having you here with us. We're glad that you're on this journey with us, and we're here as a resource for you. Let us know how we can help you grow closer and learn more about Jesus. Speaking about learning more about Jesus and how we can help you, please, all of you here in the auditorium, all of you out there online, take a moment to fill out the digital connection card. Let us know how we can connect with you. Let us know what we can do for you. Let us know who's watching online, who's on their couch in pajamas eating their Cocoa Krispies or Wheaties or whatever you like. So we want to know who's out there. We want to know who's enjoying worship with us today and how we can connect with you, how we can help you, how we can get you to know Jesus better, as I said. Also, we want to take a moment to thank all of you who invest in this ministry. It is so important for us. We can't do this without you, so we thank all of you who give to Life Church. Those of you who are out there online, those of you here in the auditorium, we appreciate your gifts and blessings as they help us to reach people for Christ. So thank you for being here. Enjoy the service, and God bless.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing out there? Great. Good to see you here. Great to see you, those of you who are watching online this morning. Thanks for joining with us today. Thanks for coming out on this rainy Saturday morning, right? This is exciting. It is spring, so we're feeling good about that. My name is Jason. If we haven't had a chance to meet before, I get to be the pastor here at Life Church. And as Dwayne mentioned, we're just really glad that you're joining with us today, again, whether it's out there online or whether it's here in the room. Before I jump into our new teaching series today, All the Feels, I wanted to hit a couple of quick announcements, or just a couple of exciting things and reminders. So one of the things that you need to know about is, especially for those of you who have kids, next Sunday will be one of the weeks in which we will be doing some kids programming during the service. So if you're out there at home sitting on the couch with the kids, next week you can bring them in. There will be some stuff. It will be outside. It will be large group activity type stuff. So just know that it's outside. Know that that's somewhat weather dependent, and they're going to have a good time out there. And if you're curious, you've got questions about that, go to our website, lifechurchlancaster.org. There's a kids and teens link. Click that right at the top, and the up-to-date information will be there. So if you have any questions about that, please just look at the kids and teens link on the website. The other thing is our small groups are starting here at Life Church. We run in semesters. We just finished this semester a few weeks ago, and we're starting a new semester. So our groups are a way to provide opportunity for people who call Life Church home to build community, to find some connection with others, to build some relationships, to find some relational support in your spiritual journey. And so our sign-ups are available. You can go to our website. There's a groups link there. Or you can, when you fill out the connection card that Dwayne talked about a second ago, you can fill in at the bottom there that you're interested in groups, and we will do whatever we can to get you plugged into a small group context that is encouraging and helpful and positive for you, and hopefully, helpful on your spiritual journey. So don't hesitate to jump in to a small group. And then finally, I have one final quick thing. And this is exciting because if you've been with us over the past several weeks, you know that we were doing an Easter offering. We were aiming to raise about $13,500 to help us catch up on our budget, but also to help us invest a little bit more funds into some tech equipment to help us do our online streaming a little bit better, kind of take things to the next level. And you guys are fantastic, so you guys totally overshot the goal, which is incredible. So we were hoping 13.5 would come in. You guys ultimately gave almost $18,000. We were just short of $18,000 for our Easter offering. So give yourselves a hand here in the room or those out there. Thanks for that. That's a huge positive. You know, it's exciting because part of what it says is that you believe in this community, you believe in this church, you believe in what we're about and what we're doing here, and that this work is important. And we believe this work is really important. So thanks for that. So we'll be able to fund the things we needed and obviously go beyond that. So I'll keep you posted on kind of what we do with some of the excess there as you guys went above and beyond. I think we'll be able to do some cool things with that. So thank you for investing in that way. So. All right, so I got all of those things out of the way. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves and jump into all the feels, right? Has anybody told you that and said that to you before? Like, I'm feeling all the feels, right? This is something people say when just sort of they're flooded with emotions, when they're really leaning into their emotions. Like, I watched that movie or that song. It just makes me feel all the feels, right? I don't know if you've used that term. Maybe you're not young enough to use that phraseology, or cool enough or hip enough. But I want us to talk about feelings over the next few weeks, and feelings are an interesting thing, right? I'm sure you know this, but humans are creatures with lots of emotions, right? It's actually said that there are about 39 different emotions on the emotional scale. And I know some of you are thinking, I know that because my spouse has all of them before breakfast, typically, right? or maybe you're thinking, that teenager in my house is experiencing probably more than 39 of those emotions. But, we all experience emotions in one way or another. And sometimes in Christian circles, in religious circles, there's certain emotions that are like the good emotions and ones that are the bad emotions. There's the ones that we want people to feel joy and we want people to feel peace. But when people are angry or when people are, sad sometimes, even in Christian circles, we say, oh no, we can't be sad. Oh, the joy of the Lord, we can't be sad. Oh, and there's good emotions that Christians like and other emotions that kind of get pushed down in Christian circles. But learning to honor and listen to our emotions ultimately is a really important step in our journey of maturation, in our growing up journey. And actually, there's a pastor who wrote a book called Emotional Healthy Spirituality. It's been around for a little while. His name is Pete Scazzaro. And the book is founded on this one basic principle that he stumbled on in his life and ministry as a pastor. He basically makes this summary point. He says, you cannot be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. He says these two things, your spiritual maturity and your emotional maturity, are thoroughly connected to one another, and we have to grow. We have to become emotionally mature to also help us become spiritually mature, because emotions are a really huge part of the human experience. Right? And one of the most beautiful things is that as we read Scripture, as we read the gospel stories, we see that Jesus himself was not, it wasn't like Prozac Jesus. He was not just like, this even-keeled, never gets upset, never feels an emotion, he's just completely dialed in with his medications. Excuse me. Jesus was he was an emotional person. He was an emotional being. And so we see Jesus getting angry at times. There's that famous story of him flipping over tables in the temple where he was very upset about something. We see Jesus weeping. I talked about this a few weeks ago. He's heaving, like he's wailing as he's weeping. He's sad about something. And we see other times where Jesus is celebrating. He gets really, really excited about some things. So Jesus really experienced. We see other times where he's in agony and in pain, emotional pain, where he's in the Garden of Gethsemane. Father, please let this cup pass from me. Right? We see a whole gamut of emotions from Jesus himself. So there's a lot of misunderstandings around emotions when we come into the Christian world, when we come into the Christian life. I grew up in a framework and was taught in school, in my spiritual training, my Bible training, when they talked about emotions, one of the things that they highly emphasized was that your emotions are like train cars on a train, but the engine is your brain, your thoughts, right? And they really emphasize this, like, if you think right, you'll feel right. And so if you were feeling sad, well, don't feel sad. Think happy thoughts, basically, is how that. Don't feel sad. Think happy thoughts. That's just think correctly, think rightly, and then the feelings, they'll just come along. And that way, it might work for a season, or it might work through certain aspects of life or things that you walk through, but ultimately, it's not a healthy long-term way to deal with our emotions. It really disregards the power of our emotions. So actually, in the past, I don't know, year and a half ago, I was sitting with my therapist talking with him about emotions, and one of the things that he said about emotions, which was a better metaphor than the train and the train car metaphor, in my opinion, and he said emotions and feelings, they're like taking children on vacation. Let me explain. He says you can't, when you go on vacation with your children and, and you're on a 5-hour drive, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Can we go to McDonald's? Can we stop? Can we go here? Can we go there? Can we, there's a lot that happens. And he says when you're on vacation with your children, there's 2 things you should not do. You should not put them in the trunk. Right? You can't ignore them. You can't just stuff your kids in the truck, say, I've had it, just be quiet. I don't want to deal with you. And you can't put them behind the wheel. You can't say, whatever you want, kids, you drive. We'll go wherever you want to go. Right? Now, that's not what you do with your kids on vacation. But a healthy response to your children on vacation is to say, stay in your seat, right? Play with your, Game Boy or whatever. Dating myself a little. Play on your phone. Wear your seatbelt. What is it you want, Johnny? Okay, you want to stop at McDonald's? Okay, well, why do you want to stop at McDonald's? Well, and you can convert. You can show that you show them respect. You converse with them, find out what they want, but they have to stay, in their seat with their seat buckles on. He says, so, dealing with your emotions is a lot like taking your children on vacation. There's a lot we can learn there. And so today, as we kick off several weeks of kind of talking about emotions, we're going to work through a lot of different emotions in these next few weeks. What I'm hoping we can do is learn to engage with our emotions in healthy ways that help us grow spiritually and emotionally, treating them a little bit more like our children on vacation. So today I want to start with an emotion that's a really, really important emotion, and it might not be one of the first ones you think of when you think about being emotional, but we're going to talk about compassion. Compassion is an emotion that we experience as humans, and it is an emotion that Jesus experienced, and it's a really, really powerful and good and true emotion to leverage in our lives. And so let's jump into a story of Jesus' life where we see some compassion, and let's see what we can learn from Jesus. All right, so let's jump in. I have these verses on the screen, and so you can just follow along with me there, or if you want to fact check me and follow along at home or on your phone, you can go to Luke chapter 7, starting at verse 11, the Gospel of Luke chapter 7, starting at verse 11. This is what how Luke tells us the story. He says, soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. So Jesus is kind of traveling with his entourage, right? He's got his disciples, at least 12 of those guys, probably a lot more. There were more than 12 disciples, but there were 12 primary disciples. And then he had a massive crowd of people who were traveling along with him, which was pretty normal for him. And it says, as he approached this town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. And so you can see this sort of interesting thing happening on this dusty road outside of Nain in the nation of Israel 2,000 years ago. Jesus and his entourage are strolling down, and he's on a roll. He's doing amazing things, exciting stuff are happening. His crowds are getting bigger and bigger. People are pumped. People are excited about Jesus and what he's doing, the healing, the teaching. So this is a really positive vibe crowd, right? They're like, woo-hoo-hoo, right? They're celebrating as they're heading down this dusty road. Out from the village of Nain comes a group of people. Luke calls them a large crowd also, and this large crowd is devastated. These people are heartbroken. They are sad. They are in the depths of despair. And why is that? Well, because the only son of a widowed mother, has passed away, and they are on their way to bury him. Now it says this, when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. Some translations say he was moved with compassion. His heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." And then he went up and he touched the bier that they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. And they were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. What a powerful story. What a powerful moment, this experience of humanity that Jesus walks into. And as we think about this story, I have 3 words I want to share with you this morning. 3 words that are going to be easy to remember. So if somebody quizzes you later at lunch and they say, "What was the sermon about?" you just need to remember these 3 words. All right? So you can win some brownie points with grandma today when you're having dinner. All right, so the first word I want you to think about is see. See. And in this passage, it says, when the Lord saw her. When the Lord saw her. See, these 2 worlds are passing by on this dusty road outside of this small town of Nain. Jesus with his entourage and the funeral procession heading out the opposite way. Both have crowds of people, but one crowd is celebrating, one crowd is weeping and wailing, and Jesus' crowd could just simply pass by, right? He could just keep on moving. These are 2 different dynamics happening here, and his group could kind of just skirt the whole thing, right? Because that's kind of a downer. I mean, this is a funeral, and it's like, oh my goodness, we're all excited. We don't want to put a damper on the spirit, but it says that Jesus, as they were passing by, Jesus sees her. Jesus sees this situation. Her, the widow, this woman. Now, she's in a desperate situation, and Luke gives us some clues to help us understand the situation she's in. She is a widow. He tells us that. That's bad, really bad news in her culture. That's bad news in any culture and any time to be a widow, clearly. In the ancient culture, in the Jewish culture, strong patriarchal culture, it generally meant that she wouldn't ever be able to remarry, and it would often mean that she wouldn't be able to provide for her needs. So it was essential in that culture as a widow that you would have children who could help provide for your needs, especially a son, again, because they had more opportunity to earn income in that society. And so she's a widow, she's walked through that pain, but now her only son, Luke tells us, has also passed away. This lady is grieving from the loss of her husband, grieving from the loss of her son, but also grieving and fearful about her own future. What in the world is she going to do? This is a really desperate human situation. And most likely, her son would have passed away that day. Because in the ancient culture, and these kind of, they didn't have the embalming techniques that we have. The mortician didn't come and take care of somebody, and then 4 days later there's a funeral. This was someone dies, they confirm the passing, they wrap them in linens, maybe put some embalming scents on them, fragrances, just like they did with Jesus when they pulled him down, and they haul him off. They put him on a stretcher and they take them to the tomb. And so this is all happening so fast, and this woman is devastated. Something happens, and Jesus sees her. Now, this is what I think Brené Brown calls a sliding door moment. She talks about these sliding door moments. It's based upon a movie that happened, it came out in the 90s or so, but these moments in life where simple little things can happen, one little change, and a choice is made, and trajectories are entirely different because of it. Right? In this moment, Jesus has an opportunity. He can keep on moving, or he can step in and do something. And this is that sliding door moment. Does he step in and do something? Does something happen here? Or do we just keep on moving with life? But even as this crowd is pushing Jesus down the street, he sees her and he notices her. And see that, and that's another piece of this. He notices. We all see a lot, right? During the day, you walk through your life, you go home, you hear it, you see a lot. But how much do we actually notice? And that's part of what Luke is saying. He's not saying Jesus happened to just see her. He's saying he noticed her. He saw what was happening for her. She stood out to him. And we live in this attention economy, right? Have you heard of this phrase? We live in an attention economy, especially with the rise of social media, cell phones, all this kind of stuff. Everybody is fighting for your attention. Your attention is a limited resource. You only have so much attention to give her, and where you put your attention is ultimately where you will move towards. What we focus on, we move towards. And marketers and social media companies, app developers, they are striving with everything they can to grab your attention. Maybe you've experienced this. I don't know if you've ever done this thing where you're like, I got 5 minutes to kill. Let me open up Facebook and take a look and see what's going on, right? Have you ever done this? Like 60 minutes later, you're like, what am I, where am I? What's happening? What day is it? Like I just got lost. Like I will open up Facebook because I want to do something specific. Like there's an event and I'm going to this event and I'm like, what were the times of that event? And I open up Facebook. 30 minutes later, I'm like, why am I on Facebook? Why did I get here? What am I doing? Oh, I was trying to look up find out information about that event. Okay, where's that event? Oh, look at that. So-and-so just got married. That's exciting. And before you know, another 30 minutes, like they know how to get our attention, right? They've hacked us, right? You should just know this, right? We can just admit this. Like, our brains have been hacked by social media companies. They control us. We can fight back. We can a bit. But they are, that's another sermon for another time. Maybe we'll explore that at a later date. But it's really powerful how they've learned to capture our attention. What if Jesus was walking down that dusty road and he was busy sending a snap to somebody? Right? Oh, what was that? I don't know. Oh, yeah, hey, look here. Oh, so-and-so just snapped me. Right? He was putting together an amazing Instagram post, right? He had a good photo. He was writing this really meaningful like stuff, like Sermon on the Mount kind of stuff. He's like typing it in, right? And meanwhile, the crying woman from Nain just kind of passes by on the dusty road, right? What we do with our attention matters. Jesus saw her. He saw what was going on. It behooves us, or it's good for us to work to kind of pay attention to the world that's around us. So we can see the people who are traveling on the same dusty roads that we're traveling on. And we can see the moments of need. Who do you need to see? This is a question to think about in your own life. Who do you need to see if you look up from the screen of the phone? Maybe it's a classmate who has cuts on their arms and they need to be seen. Maybe it's the unpopular kid who just tries to blend into the scenery and they need to be seen. Maybe it's a neighbor who's walking their dog while wiping the tears from their eyes. Maybe it's the LGBTQ family member who's been condemned and ostracized from the family. And they need to be seen. Maybe it's someone right here in our church community who's fallen on hard times. As you walk the dusty road of your own life, who do you see? Who should we see? Well, Jesus saw this woman. And the next word that stood out to me as I was thinking about the story, reading the story, was this. And this translation kind of says it differently, but the moved with compassion. Jesus was moved with compassion. So see and move, right? We've got two words down. He was moved with compassion. Now, the word in the original language of Greek, which the New Testament was written in, is the word splagna. Right? That's a fun one, right? That's a good one. You know, that kind of sounds like what happens in a baby's diaper after they eat lasagna, right? Like, did you just go splagna? After your lasagna dinner, right? It's an interesting word, and actually, it's a really powerful word in the original language, and it has this idea of something in the belly, in the bowels, like you feel it in the bowels. Have you ever had something happen in your life, like something sad, something devastated, and you feel like you got punched in the gut? It feels like something in your innards. And the ancients really thought this was the seat of emotion and thought, like it happened inside of you here. And so this term splagna has this idea of being moved in the belly and something happening there, or this pain that you feel there. And it's used a lot of times in Scripture, and it's often translated in our English Bibles as compassion. Moved with compassion, it says about Jesus. And compassion means to suffer together with someone. To have compassion means to suffer together with someone. It's when you feel someone else's suffering and then you feel motivated to relieve it, right? You want to do something about it. Jesus not only saw this widow, but he was also deeply stirred by her pain, and he wanted to do something about it. He was moved because he could feel the pain and he wanted to respond to it. Now, I think it's really important, and I try to remind us of this all the time, that Jesus shows us what God is like. This is one of the most profound realities of the life of Jesus. He repeatedly said this: if you want to know what God is like, if you don't want to know what the Father is like, watch me. Right? This is another one of those things that's kind of like Jesus was kind of either crazy or he was God incarnate in the flesh because of the things he said. If you showed up at work tomorrow and your boss is like, hey, everybody, I just got a memo. If you want to know what God is like, keep your eye on me. I'll show you. You're like, I'm going to polish up that resume, right? Because that's kind of crazy talk, right? But that's what Jesus said. So Jesus shows us what God is like. You want to know what God is like when a funeral procession is happening and a widow who loses her only son is weeping and crying? When God sees that, experiences that, God feels compassion. He's moved with compassion in that moment because Jesus is showing us that's what God is like. But as I was thinking about this, I thought about why. Why is Jesus moved? Like, just from the human standpoint, why is Jesus so thoroughly moved as he sees this moment of human pain? And I thought, well, maybe part of it is maybe he's been through some of his own pain, right? You know, one of the things interesting about Jesus' life is Joseph, his father. He's all in the Christmas stories, right? Joseph did this, Joseph did that. By the time Jesus is grown up, there's no Joseph. Like, where's Joseph? The assumption is that Joseph has passed away at this point. So it's likely that Jesus has lost his earthly father. And so maybe as he's seeing this woman carry out her son, he's feeling some of his own pain from the loss of his father. Or maybe part of the pain that Jesus is sort of sharing with him is he knows, maybe as he sees this woman walking the dusty road with her dead son, he knows that it won't be too long before his own mother will be walking that same dusty road with him on the bier. I don't know. I don't know why Jesus is so, as humanly speaking, he's so thoroughly moved at this moment, but he is. Reflecting on one of the most painful years of his life, an author by the name of Parker Palmer, who I highly encourage you to read anything he's written. He's talking about this extraordinarily difficult year of his life, and he said, I wouldn't go back and relive that for any amount of money or any amount of fame. But then he said this, he says, but I realized that season gave me a pearl of great price. I was like, well, what do you mean pearl of great price? What was the thing that made that our hard season worth it? And he says, empathy and compassion for people who walk through similar hardships. Right, because compassion is so often born out of our own pain. When you've walked through something incredibly difficult, the pearl of great price that you can walk away with that is that when you see somebody walking through that similar pain, your heart goes out to them. You're like, I know how you feel, right? I feel your pain, right? Bill Clinton had that figured out, right? He knew how to leverage that. I feel your pain. Yeah, that was his thing. But that's a really true thing. That's a powerful moment when someone feels your pain. And when you've been through pain and you see somebody else's pain, it just, your heart goes out. Show me somebody who has no compassion for somebody in pain, and I'll show you someone who is either A, never really walked through that much difficulty in their life, or B, the difficulty that they have faced, they didn't allow themselves to feel it. They buttoned down, I'm going to suck it up. I'll get through it. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to allow myself to feel the pain. So now when I see somebody else walking through a similar thing and they're experiencing that pain, I can say, hey, suck it up. I did. But that's not Jesus' way of handling the pain. Jesus was moved because he felt their pain. And so the question to ask ourselves this morning is, whose pain do you feel? Whose pain do you feel? Sometimes we can see that someone is in pain, but we have no sense of sharing that pain together, right? And there's a lot of complicated reasons why that might be. You might see somebody crying, you might see somebody really emotional, or you know that they just are suffering some sort of pain, and you're just not moved. You're not stirred at all. There's a lot of reasons why that be, but too often it happens when it's because we disagree with the context that's caused that pain. You might think they deserve it, or maybe they brought it on themselves for one reason or another, or maybe they're just being too weak or whiny. Sometimes we have deep convictions that keep us from feeling or justifying somebody else's pain. This happens with LGBTQ people when they decide to share with some of their spiritual leaders, maybe in their religious community, their pastors, this is who I am. And they share that story, and they're met with shame. They're met with condemnation. They're told they're an abomination. And the religious leaders on the other side, they can't quite understand. Meanwhile, the LGBTQ person is crushed. They're devastated. They're going to walk out of that community feeling this sense of shame. And this is partly why religious communities are some of the worst communities for LGBTQ people, and why things like mental illness, depression, and even suicide rates are higher among LGBTQ plus people in the context of religious communities because of the pain that they experience in that community, partly because the leadership doesn't have any way to identify with that, and they're holding to certain convictions. So, well, we're right. We're holding these convictions, so therefore, whatever pain you're feeling, we can't connect with it. But what changes that is when those leaders are willing to listen to some of the stories, when they're willing to see the other human on the other side and say, tell me about your journey, tell me about your life. When we're willing to listen to a story, then everything can change. When there's real pain that you have no compassion for, let that be a clue to you that you might need to hear a story. If you see someone in pain and you feel no compassion, let that be a clue that maybe you need to hear that story. Now, I'll be honest, and this has been a long journey for me, but I had little compassion for the pain of the black community because I knew very little about their collective experience. This is 6-7 years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement was just beginning to become a national phenomenon. I just couldn't understand what was going on in some of that. And I didn't connect with the pain that you would see on TV, that you would hear all over the place. Something in me told me I needed to learn. I needed to listen. And so I began to do that. I began to talk to people. I would talk to black pastors, black friends. I began to read books. I began to listen to certain podcasts. And over time, as I learned, as I listened, my heart began to change. And I began to feel compassion for these situations. And, it was a week and a half ago. I come home from work one day. I had a good day at work. Things were good. I got home. It was like 5 o'clock. Everybody was busy in the house. And I thought I'll just sit down and watch a little news for a few minutes here. What a good way to spoil your day. But I turned on the news, and the George Floyd trial had just begun, and they were showing some of this footage of his arrest. The early parts of the arrest footage I hadn't seen before, and I hear him repeatedly saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, sitting on my couch, I just wept. I just broke down. What is happening? What is happening? And I don't understand it all. I can't fix it all. But I know that Jesus' heart is moved with compassion in these situations. That we can do better. Man. My heart was moved for compassion for the pain and the deep, deep, deep pain that I've come to understand that the black and brown community live with, our brothers and sisters. But I only began to feel that because I started to listen and learn. I've got a long way to go. I'm not where I was 5 years ago. We as a church still have a long way to go. We have a lot to learn. But I know that Jesus was moved with compassion. And I know he's moved with compassion in a moment like that. So I'm encouraging us to see. I'm encouraging us to move, or Jesus encourages, the story encourages us with these things. And the last thing the word is touch. Because it says that Jesus, seeing what was happening, moved with compassion, he stepped forward and he touched the place of pain. He stepped forward and touched the place of pain. It says that Jesus stepped forward and touched the beer. Right? Now, some of you just woke up. You're like, beer? What? Thanks for sticking with me. Right? But this is like B-E-I-E-R, I think. B-E-I-R. It's a beer. It's a platform that they would carry a dead body on, all right? See, Jesus is doing something controversial even in this touch, because the Jews had all kinds of regulations around dead bodies. Like, you couldn't touch a dead body, it would make you unclean. That's partly why they wanted to wrap this body up and get them into the tomb as quickly as possible. And so you weren't supposed to touch things that touch dead bodies. And Jesus steps forward, and he doesn't care about that. See, when Jesus saw people in pain, when he saw humans suffering and struggling and in need, Jesus didn't really pay a lot of mind to all the religious rules and regulations that were supposed to keep people in certain lanes, right? Jesus just stepped forward and touched the beer. He touched the platform. He touched the thing that was unclean by the dead body that was unclean, and he didn't care. Right? And sometimes we as followers of Jesus should learn to just set aside some of those religious things that we hold on to say, I'm here to meet someone in need because a human is suffering. And that always moved Jesus. And that was priority to Jesus over other aspects, over other religious things. So Jesus steps forward and he places his hand in this and he touches the place of pain. He speaks to the burdened woman. He says, don't cry. And when he did this, I love how Luke tells the story. He did this, and it says, and the bearers stopped. The pallbearers, people who were carrying the platform, they all stopped. So these people, Jesus stopped. These people, the bearers stopped, so the whole funeral procession stops. Jesus' entourage all stops. All of a sudden, on this dusty road, you have Jesus standing next to the dead body, and all of these hundreds of people, we don't know, there's 100, 500, I don't know. We're not sure how many people here, but lots, two large crowds have passed on the dusty road. Jesus and a dead body at the center of it all. Jesus at the place of pain. And everybody stops. And this is a moment like when the miracle happens. When everybody stops and all of a sudden becomes aware of the pain that exists right in this moment. And everybody's attuned to it. Everybody's watching. Everybody's pausing for a moment to reflect on this pain. This is a sacred moment. This is holy ground. This is a moment where all of a sudden your will on earth as it is in heaven begins to shine through. The thin veil that exists between all this tangible reality and the spiritual realm begins to get thin, even more thin, and the light begins to shine through that thin veil. And all of a sudden we begin to realize that something magical, something special, something amazing, something miraculous is about to happen. Your kingdom come. It's those moments where Jesus would say, hey, the kingdom, it was just right here. Did you see it? The kingdom's right here. Right? This is a moment where the pain is being noticed. Jesus touches the place of pain, and then the miracle happens. And everybody stands back. Oh, that's what it's like when Jesus is king. That's what it's like when Jesus' love and compassion meet the pain of the world. Healing, wholeness. The boy sits up, starts talking. Jesus gives him back to his mother. Maybe you've experienced moments like this where that veil seems a little more thin than normal. That veil between the spiritual and the physical. Maybe it's when a group of your friends show up and do something compassionate for another person in need, and you stand there in the afterglow of that event and you're like, something amazing just happened. Or witnessing acts of courage and self-sacrifice in a moment of crisis or tragedy. Or maybe it's when love fills the hospital room as the family gathers to say goodbye to a parent or a grandparent. There are these thin spaces where we realize there's more to this world than the material, and that the spiritual is very real. Jesus saw her, he was moved, and so he touched the place of pain. Now you might be thinking, I don't know what it means to touch the place of pain. What does that mean for me? Right? And what's interesting about Jesus, he was Jesus, so he could kind of do whatever, right? If I could raise the dead, I would do that, right? I can't do that. Well, Jesus did what Jesus can do when we can do what we can do, right? What can you do? Maybe you can do some learning first, right? That's good for a lot of us. It's good to do a lot of learning first and then figure out how to move forward. Maybe you have time that you can spend with someone who's in need, someone who's discouraged. Maybe that's something you can do. That's a way you can touch the place of pain, is just by spending some time with somebody. Maybe it's finances. Sometimes that's a way we touch the place of pain for people. We meet them in a moment of financial need. Maybe it's just simply saying a prayer with somebody. Maybe it's showing up and just sitting with someone while they're mired in their depression, and you just sit there and say, I love you and I'm here for you. And you just spend an hour sitting there in silence with somebody. Maybe you have spiritual support to offer. When we allow compassion to move us, we can touch the place of pain in ways that are natural for us. So the emotion of compassion is a powerful force for good in this world. We would all benefit from more of it in our communities. So I leave you with kind of 3 questions to think about this morning. And that's, who do you see? How does it move you? And where can you touch? Who do you see? How does it move you? And where can you touch? But before we're done today, I also want to point out that not only did Jesus see that devastated widow who was burying her only son that day, what we know from this is that this is what God is like. Jesus is showing us that this is what God is like. And so whatever your burdens you're carrying, whatever devastation you're walking around with today, Jesus sees that too. Jesus will walk with you through that. Jesus will come and can put his hand on the place of pain in your own life. One of the most profound promises in the Bible is found in the book of Hebrews, and in the original language, it's written in the most emphatic way it could possibly be written in the ancient Greek language. It's when Jesus says, I will never leave you, nor will I ever forsake you. If you want to make that emphatic, you just put a lot more nevers and evers in there, right? I will never, ever, ever, ever leave you, nor will I never, 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 ever forsake you. That's how we do it. In the Greek, it's done in a very specific way to say, this is as emphatic of a statement as I can say. I will never leave you, nor will I ever forsake you. So Jesus sees you, too, in whatever pain and struggle that you may be carrying. He sees you. He's moved by your pain. He feels it, too. And Jesus will stop the crowds. God will stop the crowds in order to stop. Bring attention to your pain and put a hand, put a touch in the place of the pain in your life, because that is what God is like. That's what Jesus helps us see. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much for these few moments this morning as we think about pain, as we think about compassion. Some of us are on the pain side this morning. Life's been hard. We've been hit hard. We've been walloped in certain ways. Our hearts are devastated. We're carrying burdens. We're hurting. And we need to know today that you meet us in that place of pain. Thank you that that's what you're like, that you're a God who feels our pain with us. That's what compassion is, splagna. Lord, you bring that to us. You feel our pain with us. What an amazing truth. But also, Lord, some of us are in that place where maybe we've just been too busy, our attention has been elsewhere, and we haven't seen the people around us who are walking through seasons of pain. There's a lot of pain going around. So, Lord, I pray that you would help us find comfort in you, find rest in you, find encouragement in you, and also be able to turn our attention to those who are walking the dusty road of life, heading outside the town of Nain, carrying burdens, carrying pain. Help us have the attention to see it, to step into it, and to touch people in that place of pain. Help us, guide us, help us know what to do. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jason. Again, if you are willing, comfortable, and able, stand with us today and worship our great God. That even though is washed away, head out of water, walking on waves. Way turns to wonder in the light of your grace.
Thank you. Thanks. They're sounding fantastic today, so thanks for making it happen here, band. And thank you so much for being here with us today. Hopefully you had an encouraging morning with us. If you have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to engage with you on those. I'll try to run around and be outside. Is it raining? No, anyway, good to see you all. Remember, fill out that digital connection card. If you didn't do that yet this morning, take a moment quick, fill out that digital connection card, let us know you're here. Remember, next week we got the kids stuff. Check out the website. We got small groups. Check out the website. And next week we'll be in part 2 of All the Feels, all right? So thanks for being here today, and until next time, Godspeed.